Welcome to Storybabble. In this episode, I'm going to teach you how to get full, rich color out of your tube lights. I'm also going to tell you why these Amaran tube lights are so great. Well, actually, I'm going to let Ted Sim, CEO of Aputure, tell you himself, just like he told me.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing good.
Tubes are something I'm really passionate about because there's a lot of reasons why tubes are great, but what I think people don't talk enough about, they don't talk about the reasons why tubes also kind of suck. My problem with tubes is, number one, the way that the tubes are actually built, they're like incredibly hard to mount.
Now, these tube lights are full of mounting options. There's a 3/8 thread mount here in the middle, and that is surrounded by 2 1/4-20s. And there's another one just like it here on this end with 2 1/4-20s, and on this end as well. There's also a 3/8 mounting point on both ends, and it comes with this little ring that you can screw in here, and that allows you to hang this light pretty much anywhere. The battery also has a 3/8 mounting point on the end. And if that wasn't enough, the entire backside of these lights have a NATO rail, and that means it's compatible with the NATO rail system of accessories. And so there really is no end to the different ways that this can be mounted. Good job, Ted.
If you want to put them in frame, tubes look beautiful. The problem though is that pretty much every tube out there, when you dim it down, you start to see the individual pixels. That's a problem.
Oh yeah.
The second problem though is that if you dim it, turn the brightness off, you don't see the pixels anymore, but now they're overexposed. How do you dial in the pixels so close and diffuse them so that they look like one tube even when they're dimmed down? But then how do you make them bright enough to actually be able to light scenes outside and use them as an actual light?
Yeah. So pixel density is a big deal, and I was going to get some other tube lights from a friend of mine to compare them with these Amaran lights. But when I texted him, he told me that his tube lights were all busted, but he'd be happy to lend me his Amaran lights, which are working well. I thought that was funny. So here are a couple of other images that I snagged from other channels, and you can see that dimmed down, some of these tube lights have a problem with the pixels showing up. So you might say, well, that's when it's dimmed down. I'll just turn my tube lights up and that will solve the problem. But it will solve the problem of seeing the pixels, but you're going to lose all the deep, rich color in your tube lights when you turn them up. Now, this is an important principle in shooting video, and I don't hear it talked about much, although every videographer I know knows it instinctively as they work with footage. And that is, as the exposure goes down, the saturation goes up. And as the exposure goes up, you lose color in the image. Here's a demonstration of how this works in Final Cut Pro. Here is a red circle and a blue circle, and I've also put in a white circle for comparison. Now you can see on the waveform at the left that the exposure is about 90%. And as I increase the exposure, the colors start to wash out. And as I lower the exposure, the colors become richer. But then at a certain point, they dim down and head back to black. Now, as we overexpose the image, it moves to white. In fact, if we raise the exposure enough, all colors will eventually turn to white. So if you want to get the richest color out of the tube lights that are in the scene, you're going to want to dim them down as much as they can. In this case, these are both dimmed down to 1%, and you can't see any pixels. Good job, Ted. So to demonstrate, I will take the Sidus Link app here, and I will take the 2-foot tube, and I will increase its intensity. And as I do, you can see that the color changes and actually ceases to be red. In fact, if we get it all the way up, it pretty much turns into a bright yellow. And if you look at the light here, if you were here in the room with me, you would still see that as very red. But the camera is going to see that as yellow and approaching white because it's clipping some of the information in the camera. This is something you're going to want to play around with, but just remember, the lower the exposure, the more saturation. To a point. There is a sweet spot.
Across the spectrum, these are actually brighter than Quasar tubes. They're actually brighter than a scale tube as well. So, the brightest tubes on the market.
So I'm going to take Ted's word that these are the brightest tubes on the market, but that doesn't really answer the question. The question is it bright enough to light a scene and use in your video work? So over here I have my hair light. It's an Aputure 100X and there is a Light Dome Mini on it. And that's what I've been using, but it kind of sticks out and I'd like to be able to use the tube light instead. Let's see if it's powerful enough. That's at 2.4%, and now let's just bring it up to something and you can see, well, that's probably going to be pretty good for my hair light, and let's bring it all the way up to 100%. You can see that's way too much for a hair light. So it is going to have enough power to be a great hair light for me. So without a rim light and now with the tube light, I think it works great as a hair or rim light. I also have the added benefit of picking any other color that I may want to bring in. Not that I'd want to bring in blue on the side, but I guess it's possible. Probably just going to go with some version of white, maybe cool it down a little bit or warm it up. Yeah, maybe something like that. I don't know. What do you think? Turned off all the lights in the studio except the 2-foot hair light, and now I'm going to add the 4-foot Amaran tube light, and we'll see what it looks like. It's kind of in my eyes, so it's kind of difficult to know when to stop. Somewhere maybe around in that range, 68%. Okay, so this would work as a key light in a pinch, I guess. A tube light is interesting because it's both a hard and a soft light. It's soft side to side, but hard up and down, which gives kind of an interesting effect, or gives an effect like this. Now, if I wanted a more dramatic effect, I guess I could move it off to the side or try something else like that, but I can see this working. Now, if you wanted to make it even softer, you could put some diffusion in front of it and make that work, although I'm going to take this all the way up to 100%. That's as bright as it gets, about 4 feet away from me. Well, I'm probably sticking with the Lantern. It is one of my favorite modifiers. I use it a lot. It makes everything look good. And I'm not the only one who thinks that. I love the Lantern.
I love the Lantern.
The Lantern is
The Lantern. It makes everyone look good.
It does.
It makes every space look good instantly.
Yeah, exactly. Now, another thing that Ted told me is that Aputure is working on an Aputure branded light, which obviously would be more money and would have a built-in battery rather than a separate battery. And the separate battery for the Amaran system was created just for content creators.
My issue with a lot of the tubes that are made on the market right now is they're not designed for content creators. They're designed for people that can buy 8, 12, 18 tubes at a time.
Right.
For those people, it's not a big deal to have a tube on set, have the battery built in, and then the battery dies, and then they're literally like, call in another one, and then they swap it out and have 18 tubes in the truck.
Right.
My problem is normal people, when they buy a tube, $200, $300, they don't have the budget to buy 18 of those tubes.
Exactly. Now, the battery is the exact same for both the 2-foot and the 4-foot version, which is nice because then if I need it, I can interchange them. But that brings me to the one thing about these lights that perplexes me, and that's this wire. What? Why Aputure couldn't put this inside of here, I don't have any freaking idea. And somebody thought this was a good idea. And maybe it saves some money, but come on, how much money would it have cost to just put this right here? Now, I know that would give up a 3/8 mount on one of the ends, but hey, I'm willing to give up a 3/8 mount on one of the ends if I can put the battery right in here without a wire. And what's worse, when you put this on, where the wire goes is not around the back. It's right here on the side. There is no hiding this wire. So for some reason, Aputure couldn't put this plug here on the back and couldn't move this to the back either. They had to put it right here in the side for all to see. It actually reminds me of the original Star Wars movie where Obi-Wan Kenobi's lightsaber had to be plugged in and hidden under his cloak. Hey, but I'm probably just being too picky. Perhaps no one will notice the wire except me. All right, so now that I've ruined any chance at a sponsorship by Aputure, I'll continue with my rant by saying Aputure promised a lot of accessories for these tube lights, and as of yet, we haven't even heard what they are. The only accessory is this little ring that comes in the case. Oh, and it does come with a very nice case and everything you need. Hats off on the case. But anyway, back to my rant. I don't know what's coming. Is there a softbox, some barn doors, an egg crate, something for these NATO rails? Aputure is not telling us, and I have the tube lights. I need to use them now. So do I buy other accessories and not buy yours? Okay, Aputure, it's time to at least tell us what's coming so we can make a choice. Is that too much to ask? Apparently that's too much to ask. I'll move on. And now to the biggest reason that I bought these tube lights. It's because they play very well with all of my Aputure and Amaran lights.
Actually, if you take two different lights and you dial them both in to like 23 HSI, like that's the color that I want in the color wheel, you'll actually see that between different brands, nobody set a standard of what 23 looks like.
Right.
And then if they use different underlying LED technology, you'll see that one will be green and one will be blue when you try to dial it in the same color.
Yeah.
So the tricky thing for us is we have to try to take the same technology that's in the Nova, the P60X, the P60C, and build that technology into our tubes as well too, so that no matter what the form factor is, the colors always match in the color signs. So it's more than just an ecosystem game, it's also like a matching game.
It's kind of the Lego of lights. And who would buy Mega Blocks when there's Lego? Just throwing that out. The Sidus link is the reason that all of my lights are either Aputure or Amaran. I don't see a reason to go outside of that. There are some great lights out there, and if you're using a different light, that's awesome. And if you're using a variety of different lights, that's awesome too. But there is something about just sitting here in your studio and dialing in all of these lights and seeing yourself on the monitor that is just kind of a thrill. And I don't really want to have another light that I'm going to have to get up and adjust. Yes, I am that lazy. So if you're not subscribed to Aputure's channel, I want you to go there now and click there and watch their videos. Particularly Valentina Vee, she makes some fantastic videos that are very helpful, because it's one thing to own great gear and it's another one to use it well. So go there. Now, if you've already gone there and you're already a subscriber, well, then you can come back here and watch some of the things that I have to talk about.
Good job. Thanks, Ted.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Nice to meet you, Mark. So I made an art installation just on the other side of this wall.
All right, you gotta dig this. That's good stuff.
It looks great. He did an awesome job.